At Farmers Insurance, we know the sound of a perfect hot air balloon landing. And a less than perfect one. Seen it, covered it. Click for more.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
The following is a Podcast One Minnesota production.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
If it's made in Minnesota, who's making it and how?
Yeah, you got that right.
It's the Makers of Minnesota, focusing on the products and services uniquely made in Minnesota, and conversations with the makers, entrepreneurs, and innovators in Minnesota about how they conceived of their products and how they brought them to market. With Stephanie Hansen, it's the Makers of Minnesota.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Makers of Minnesota. I'm Stephanie Hansen, and we are here at episode number 90 of The Makers, where we are talking to cool people that live in the state of Minnesota doing cool things. And today, my guest is Angie from Muddy Mouth Cards. And Angie, you and I have been trying to get together for, I swear, like a year.
It has been about a year, you're right.
Because you had a baby, right?
I did. I have an 8-month-old.
Okay, so I cannot wait to talk to you. First of all, about your foul-mouthed, profane cards that I love so much.
Awesome.
Here's just an example. Celebrate your birthday the same way that you came into the world, naked and screaming. Or, I'm not so good with the sentimental words, but can I interest you in a sarcastic comment? Or this is some shitty shit. You have really good cancer cards, too.
Oh, unfortunately. Top sellers, but...
Are they really?
Yes.
That's how I first came across you. That's so funny.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't. We have some that we try to focus on getting rid of the cancer. But profanity and cancer, I think, just kind of go together.
It really does.
Yeah.
I think I've bought your fuck cancer card like 52 times.
Yeah.
Every person I know that has cancer, that's the first thing I seek out.
It is literally our number one card.
I just saw a really nasty one that is so funny. Happy birthday card that is very naughty for men that might be very well endowed and their happy
the one
wives.
You're talking about.
Yes. All right. So tell me a little bit about how you got started in the card world.
So my previous world was for a local company called Archivers.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved scrapbooking and card making. And when I graduated from the U of M, I ended up working as a designer for Archivers. So I was making cards and scrapbook pages for a living. It was basically the greatest job that you could ever imagine. And as they went away, they closed, and I was very, very sad. I got a new job, and after about a year of being in an office, I was just missing a creative outlet.
Mm-hmm.
I just needed something besides just 9 to 5. Even though I was enjoying my job, I didn't have that creative piece to it.
Yeah.
So I decided to launch an Etsy shop. So I had made, probably just a couple dozen cards, and I would say they weren't quite as aggressive as what my assortment is currently. So they were maybe on the softer side. And I had some interest, a few sales, definitely a lot from friends, I think, that were being helpful and supportive, which I appreciated. And then this little shop said, we're interested in carrying your cards. And so I thought, this might be something.
Yeah.
I might work on expanding my assortment. And it just boomed. So that was November of 2013.
And Muddy Mouth, was that always the name of your company?
That has always been the name of my company. My boyfriend at the time, now husband, he was trying to help me come up with some ideas of what the name of my business should be.
Sure.
At the time, I was thinking I wanted something with dirty in it.
Yep.
And I come from a family that profanity is not as widely accepted as I would like it to be. And so I was a little bit embarrassed that I was making these cards, and my grandma was mortified. So I thought, okay, maybe if I don't go all out with profanity and I tone it down a little, instead of just doing dirty, I'll water it down. And so that's how I came up with muddy. If you add a little water to the dirt, you get mud. And so my husband kind of helped me work through that.
It's clever.
So, yeah, thank you. He's very creative.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
So we started with that toned down version, and after a while, it was like, let's go full dirt. But I loved the name so much. So
I talked to someone last week that Etsy was kind of how they got their start, and they talked about the advent of Etsy from kind of the beginning where it was really based in a maker's movement to when it eventually got bought by Amazon, and then it wasn't so much of just a makers movement.
Right.
Were you there during that whole trajectory, and how did that
Yes.
impact your business?
Yes. So I started on Etsy, and it was very much just a kind of a maker's community. There was a lot more, I think, resources on there for people trying to start small businesses and really help you grow. And it's really elevated into not just makers, but it's become just another search engine, I would say, of it's just a hub of another place you can find more things. And we've started to, I would say, outgrow Etsy, as that I still love Etsy and we're still on Etsy, and I still think there's a lot of great things on there. But it started to get a little more clouded, I would say, with a lot of other things. So it's difficult to stand out as a maker. And so then when you have all these other things kind of being thrown into the mix, and Amazon's a good example of another just search engine of things that you can find, Etsy is starting to ramp up with a lot more power behind it. So there are a lot more people, a lot more things that are on there. But I will say Etsy, because I think of how well known it is, we do get our most interesting searches on Etsy for very specific things. So I think people know to go there, like, I need a vasectomy card. I'm going to go to Etsy to find that specific item. So we do get really specific requests on Etsy, but it is interesting to see just how that has changed. Even just how the financial aspect of Etsy has changed, and kind of what their cut is and how that's changed over time. And
Tell me about that.
What their credit card processing fees is. All of those things have increased since I've first started. So when I looked at it when I first started, it honestly seemed like such a great deal. This is it really was so beneficial to me. And as they keep kind of changing things along the way, I've noticed that there continues to be a little higher fee here or another fee here. And if you want to use our processor, we're going to charge you a little more. Here's a swiper so you can do a pop-up shop, but we're going to charge you to do that. And so there's just a lot of extra fees that go along with it, which is why we finally decided to just launch our own website. I still, like I said, we're still on Etsy, but it was important to me to have our own branded website and be able to connect with customers that way too.
When did you launch your website?
We launched about a year ago, just before baby was born. I was trying to find some time before baby came that I could really launch into full branded Muddy Mouth. And I thought maybe during some maternity leave that I could have some time to really help with the branding of it.
Is this your first baby?
It is. Yeah,
That's a first baby thought.
Yes, it is. I got very lucky with a fairly good sleeper.
Right.
So I did get a little bit of branding done during that maternity leave. But definitely more. I quit my full-time job this year, just 2 months ago.
Oh, wow.
So now we're really into full branding and really going into the website now. So like I said, we're still in Etsy. They've launched Etsy Wholesale too. And that's another resource where other retailers, other stores, other locations from all over, they can find us on there. And so I love that people can find us on there, but we always try to direct them back to our website too if we can.
And in Etsy Wholesale, can they buy things at wholesale pricing right there?
Yep. So you have to get approved through Etsy Wholesale. It's kind of a different website than just Etsy. You go through a little bit of a different process to make sure you can get approved. And then also the stores that are purchasing, they also have to be approved to purchase.
I do kind of love that idea, though, because it makes it so that stores that are brick and mortar stores that are struggling to stay relevant can find unique and creative things.
Absolutely. I mean, and people that aren't in Minnesota too.
Yeah.
Definitely the most of our stores are in Minnesota here, but we've connected with stores in Colorado,
I noticed
Kansas,
that.
And they found us honestly through Etsy Wholesale, which has been so it's really a great resource. I love a lot of what Etsy is doing. I can just feel it getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and away from the small time maker.
So let's talk about the website itself. About how much do you think it costs you to put the website together?
Well, we're a small team, and I'm pretty much kind of figuring everything out on my own. I was very lucky. The job that I had between Archivers and doing just cards, I was assisting franchisees in business operations.
Yep.
So that really gave me a lot of training in becoming an entrepreneur. And so I did learn a lot, and things like website I learned through there. So I didn't have to pay anybody to do it. I had kind of figured out coding on my own and figured out
so you're doing
images.
it yourself.
So I'm really doing it myself. So I pay for my annual website fee, and everything else is done by me. And then I've just hired somebody to help with some maintenance. And she's just doing a few hours a week where she's helping out with updating our retailers, updating our events, updating new images for cards, things like that.
Yep.
So
Wow. So your website is pretty slick.
yeah, it is.
It doesn't look homemade.
It is very, very slick. I would highly recommend Shopify for anyone who's looking for a very user-friendly system, because I am not a tech-savvy person. And so I think they do a really good job of providing support for people like me who are looking for, okay, how can I add and navigate this page? Because I had never done it before.
Right.
So Shopify definitely helped me get started.
I'm curious about, so your website is listing all your retailers, listing your wholesalers. You have events listed there. You have cards. Do you feel like it's more of like a mobile display, or are you literally trying to drive traffic to purchase cards through the site?
I would say both. We definitely get people who are looking on the site to try to find a location that they can buy the cards. From doing all the pop-up shows that we do, there's something to be said for people being together in a social environment while they're looking at the cards. It just encourages sales.
Yeah.
Honestly, we do really well at drinking events. So breweries are like our best friend. So any kind of pop-up event at a local brewery, we love.
I always spend more money at drinking
Oh
events.
my gosh, right? They
I'm
give
the
you a glass of
consummate
wine.
drunk
and it's-
shopper.
I know, it's the best.
And cards are an easy thing.
It is.
It's like,
it's
oh,
easy,
you're always
and
going to
it's
use them.
$5, and
Yeah.
so it feels like it's just we always do promotions at shows too. So it's definitely an easy way to connect with people in person. But we do sales every day on our website. So we have, especially right now, Mother's Day. It is one of the few times of the year that I see a lot of men's names come through our orders. So I think it's one of the times that they feel guilted into buying a card,
Yeah.
which I love. So
Some of your cards are 3D.
yeah.
And they have a texture to them. Like
Yeah.
your cards have an art element to
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
Is that part of the joy that you have of making the cards, or do you?
Yes.
Because sometimes you just do words too,
Yep.
or letterpress, I guess.
Yep. So I think because I came from paper crafting, since that was kind of my background, and I love the touch and feel,
Me
and
too.
the folding and the gems, and I just like the stuff on there. The very first card company that I really remember loving, I was in high school, and it was called McWright. And it was old photographs.
Yes.
And they had just snarky little statements
Yes.
printed with them. Okay, so I loved that. And I loved that it looked like a photo
Yes.
attached to paper. And it wasn't just the photo printed on the paper. I loved that it was like a photograph
It was
on the card.
more tactile and
Yes,
three-dimensional.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
even though it was just flat photo on a piece of paper, I just liked that. And I've always thought about that as I've been creating, that I like that extra element. Even a huge company like Papyrus. I mean, they have so many cards. They're in Caribou Coffee, and
Yep.
they've got their own standalone stores. You can get them in Hallmark, all different kinds of places. But I think that texture element that they have in their cards, I think it really speaks to people, and it makes those things stand out. So I just like the dimensional aspect of it, and I do think it adds a little more creativity to the words.
Let's talk about the ideas of the
Yeah.
cards. Like I have them sort of scrolling by on my computer, and one just was like, pregnancy card, I hope you don't poop during labor.
One
Or,
of my
oh my
fears,
God,
right.
a baby just came out of you.
Right.
The poop during labor thing is funny, isn't it? It's like by the
Always.
time you're actually giving labor, it's kind of like the
Yeah,
last
it's-
thing
it's a-
on your
it's a moot
mind. And if
point.
you did poop, the nurses you wouldn't even know because
I
they'd
know.
wipe it away so
I know.
fast.
That I actually wrote before I had children. My coworker was telling me, like, this is a thing that happens, and I was young and dumb
Thank
and had
God
no
for
idea.
coworkers.
Oh, seriously, thank God. People to warn me of what's coming up.
About, yes, like, do you have your hemorrhoid
Yeah,
pads
yes,
before you go
exactly.
home with the baby?
So that's honestly, that's how we write cards, is like, I'm just talking to friends and family, and they say things, and I make notes in my phone. I'm like, man, that would be a funny card. And I might not always know exactly what it's going to be, so I might just write poop during labor, and I kind of will just muddle it around for a little bit until I find out what is the card there. So I have just constant lists in my phone. I have a list of probably 60 things of not only suggestions of wording, but also categories.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people are like, oh, I need a card for this. Do you have that? No, we don't have a card for that. I got to come up with something for that.
Yeah.
So,
The Mother's Day, and I've thought about this, like Mother's Day, like stepmom cards.
yes.
You know, like That's kind of a hard category to buy a Mother's Day card for because they're not your like mom.
Right.
But for a lot of the people, stepmoms, they're pretty close to a mom.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know we've got one that says, you might not have pushed me out of your vag, but you're still my mom. Happy Mother's Day.
I love that.
Yeah. So you can still, sometimes it's hard to kind of, that line of what can you say that's inappropriate but not too mean.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of profanity, but we actually try not to be too mean.
Yeah, because nobody wants a card that's mean.
Right, exactly.
I like congratulations on 9-ish months of sobriety. Sober cards are actually hard to find too.
I agree. Very
it's
hard.
Very life-changing thing for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Very.
Drinksgiving.
Yes, exactly. I know. It's
At Farmers Insurance, we know every windshield collision has a unique sound. Beetle. Bird poop. Drone. Seen it, covered it. Click for more.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
Your cards, as I recall, are priced about, I think, like $4.95 a card.
It depends on what retailer you're at, but usually between 5 and 6 on our website. They're $5.50.
Okay.
If you follow us on Instagram, there's always a promotion code on our
Okay,
Instagram
little
page,
tip.
though. So follow us on Instagram.
About how long does it take you to make a card? And do you like, okay, today I'm making poop cards and I'm making 55 poop cards?
So I've actually stopped making them, and I have my partner, Carla, and she actually hand makes all the cards. So I'm so lucky that I really get to focus on designing. And then I handle a lot of like wholesale shipments, ordering of the actual product, the printing of the product, but everything I deliver to her, and she assembles and packages everything. So I will let her know, okay, we need 50 of this, 100 of this, 50 of this, and based on kind of what our current needs are, she'll assemble those.
I have this weird idea of like your garage where you have like a giant card. You know how the old like postcard holders, is that kind of how the cards are stored?
Basically, I was fortunate that my husband let me take over our basement. We finished our basement, and my basement is just, we keep about 15,000 cards on hand. So my basement is just stocked with cards in every corner you could think of. Carla also, of course, always has some at her house because she usually is working on, I probably say she has a few hundred to 2,000 on hand at her house that she's usually working on. So it's always just crazy, piled high with cards, but it's always fun. We always love seeing what's coming up next.
As I look at your ideas and your slogans, because you're really clever, do you think you would take this like into coffee mugs or T-shirts or because it seems like such a natural.
Definitely. So now that I really get to focus full time on Muddy Mouth, I would love to start looking at tote bags and napkins and T-shirts. We had some T-shirts made just for working at vendor events, and that Carla and I would sometimes wear at events, and it says "Caution, Heavy Profanity." And the number of people that came up and said, "Oh, we want one of those T-shirts," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I just wore them as like staff T-shirts.
Yeah, it's a whole nother business
model.
It's
a whole nother business, and I would love to get into it. I'm so overwhelmed with cards right now that I want to. We've hired 2 more people just in the last month, and so that's really helping take some of these other things off my plate, so I can focus on some bigger picture things.
So let's talk about that for a second. Yeah. You're at the evolution of your business where things are really on a roll. And you're starting to add staff. So are you taking a salary from your business yet?
I am.
And you've been at it how long?
4.5 years.
Okay, so
I would say I probably started last year.
Okay.
That I was able to take money out of the business.
So you are now having to make decisions to hire people, which sometimes that means either there isn't going to be enough for you or as much for you. At what point do you decide to add someone, and what is your strategic thinking, if you don't mind sharing that? Because there's a lot of people listening to this that, it's hard to hire the first person, but then like the third and the fourth. Yeah. But then as you get to like starting to go past that, it's all coming out of your pocket, as it were.
For sure. Really, I had to do a very detailed analysis of how I was spending my time. How much time am I spending ordering, packaging, shipping, updating my website? Just how much time am I spending doing these things?
And how long did you keep that record?
Probably 6 months. Mm-hmm. It was really because of my industry. We're so busy during holiday time, and that really starts to ramp up around September, October. And so I really wanted to track it during that time frame to see how much time am I spending and how much time was Carla spending on all of that the portion of the job that she was doing, which was assembly and packaging. So I focused pretty heavily on what things was I doing and what things was I ready to take off my plate. Now I'm very much a type A personality, so part of it for me is it's hard to let go
Sure.
and have other people take those things on. But I also knew if I wanted to keep growing, I was going to need more help. And so finally I've been able to get organized enough to get all those things. Because that's the other thing is that even though I was ready to hire somebody, I needed to get organized for somebody else to take this on.
Yep.
And get them instructions. And one of the, I think, great things for us at my company is we don't have an office. We all work at our home. So everyone is a stay-at-home mom. All 4 of us that are hired, we all have children, and we all get to work at home. And they can wear their pajamas, and they can drink wine, and they can work whenever they want. So if they want to work at 10 p.m., they can work at 10 p.m. If they want to get done while kids are napping, they can get done while kids are napping. And I didn't specifically go looking for that, but it's a business model that works for us. So I've been so fortunate for that. And so finding what things can I kind of dole out to other people that I can take off my plate that will help me continue to grow. That's what I really wanted to focus on. So things like shipping, where I was doing it every day and it takes me a lot of time. It was like, man, I got to get this off my plate.
Yep.
So finding help with that was
When you
huge.
kept that list for 6 months and got real empirical about it and just looked at it, were the answers of where you needed to hire obvious?
Yes and no. I would say shipping was probably the most obvious. My website, I wasn't spending a lot of time on the website, but I would say it's because I didn't want to. And so I didn't look at that as an area that I could dole out because it was like, oh, I'm hardly spending any time on this. And so I didn't think to hire for it until I really started looking at it and saying, I'm not spending time on this because I don't want to spend time on it, but I should.
Yep.
I should have this is the second version of my website that's currently launched. The first version was a little more simplistic and I didn't have an events calendar. I didn't have my wholesale retailers listed. So things like that, I was able to hire somebody to get those updated for me because even though I could say I didn't need to hire for it, I wanted those tools. I wanted those things. And so instead of me trying to find the time to do it, I said, I need to hire this out to somebody. So then I decided to make a list of what are the things that I want to do, such as building the business with tote bags and napkins. That's another thing that I'm going to look at hiring out.
I didn't even think about napkins, but I think that's a great business model for like book clubs and baby showers and
just snarky. Yeah, exactly. I've hosted so many baby showers and bridal showers and things like that, and I've got so many snarky friends. I just feel like, there's something in that.
I buy napkins for little stuff like parties and cocktails and
exactly.
Thanksgiving and
just cheap throwaway napkins, but if they have something cute and funny on them, I think
exactly.
they might do something. So,
smart.
Yeah, so I'm going to start looking at hiring out some of those other avenues that I can't fill myself.
Yep. When you think about social media, because I'm assuming that that's a big part of this too.
For sure.
If you can put a picture of a card on Instagram, like, is that an automatic seller? How often are you posting?
I post every day, or I would say close to every day. Not always a picture of a card. Sometimes today it was my kid crawling to a bin of cards. There's all her toys in the background. She doesn't care. She just wants bins of cards. They all crinkle. They're the best.
That's funny.
So usually if I post something, it's going to sell. It's just an automatic reinforcement to the person like, oh my gosh, I need to have this right now. And they can click the link in our Instagram page and get there. Facebook, we don't have as many direct click into products as we do on Instagram. Instagram seems to be a little bit more sales related than Facebook is right now, but we do still have a lot of connection on both of those. Sometimes it's testing new things. So it's something that I maybe made a small quantity of, and I just want to get a reaction of. If I don't get a lot of reaction on social media, I know it's not something that I'm going to.
Oh, interesting. So it's like a test market.
Yep, exactly. And it works great. I can tell if I put something out there and I get a huge response to it, it's like, okay, Carly, you better start cranking out hundreds of these because I know it's going to sell.
Can you think of an example of a card that you thought was a total winner that just turned out to be a dud?
Gosh, there's so many duds.
Really?
There's so many. It really, there's some things that you think are funny that you put in your phone and you type it in and you're like, yeah, this is going to be a funny card and somebody's going to pick up on this, and it just doesn't have enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the design of the card and the statement itself. We have one that says, Life is Short, Stop and Smell the Buttholes, and it's a picture of a dog on
Yep.
it. The previous design that we had, it just wasn't as cute. The font wasn't as cute. The dog wasn't as cute. And so we changed it. I've updated the colors and the font and the dog, and it sells like crazy.
That is hilarious.
So every once in a while, if I'm really passionate about a card, I'm like, okay, I know this is a winner. I'm just going to try to rework it a little bit and try to put it back out there and see what we can do with it. But yeah, sometimes I think it's funny or cute, and it maybe just misses a little bit. There's a lobster card that we have. I love the show Friends. I know it's long gone, but I still love the show Friends.
There's a lot of people that do.
Yeah, and some of our friends' material does sell well. We have one that says "You're his lobster."
Yep.
And that one, it did okay, but not as well as I wanted it to.
It has
Some
to
of
be
them,
the right person.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be like such a specific market. So, yeah.
When you are putting your energy into the cards, like when you talk about moving into other arenas, do you use like a lot of people test market at farmers markets, different flavors, and so is that part of the pop-up strategy for you too?
For sure. Pop-up markets are a great place for me to test out cards. I've had people come up to me and say, I didn't see this on your website. And I'm like, man, we have like 300 cards on our website. So if you can pick out one that isn't there, that's really impressive. But I tell them, we're introducing these and we want to see how they do. And so I'm just doing a small handful of them to see if we have a good response to it. If we do, then I'll probably start, replicating more of these. But for now, we're just doing a small collection. Sometimes just telling people that makes them want to buy it because they know it's a small assortment
Sure.
and they can't get it on the website. And sometimes that can be misleading because we can then sell out at a market and it still doesn't do as well on our website. But I have noticed there are some things that will sell better online. People are searching for a specific thing. They can find it online and they might not be in a store at a pop-up event looking for that specific category. So sometimes that plays a part in it too.
Are you... do people steal your ideas? And is intellectual property something that as a card holder you can even prove?
It's hard. Yes, people steal ideas. It happens all the time. I've only reached out to one person specifically because it was just so
blatant.
Obvious. Yeah, It was just so blatant that everything from the font and the coloring, it's the only time that I've seen it. And she even admitted, she was in Minnesota and she saw it at an event and copied it. So she pulled the product down and we were done with it. On occasion, there are, other times where I come across something that's like, gosh, it's so similar, but, how do you prove it? And so if it doesn't look so specific, I usually just drop it, let it go. I think there's room for lots of creative, funny content out there. It's not like I think I'm the only, card creator with profanity on their cards. So it's definitely something I think about. But in this day and age with social media, people come up to the booth all the time and ask, can I take a picture of this and send it to my friend? And I always say, yeah, sure, give us credit. Tag us on your story or
That's
whatever.
That's a smart way to
they're
handle
doing.
it. I did notice a card manufacturer, or a card booth it was at a fair, I think. And it said something like, please don't take pictures of our cards. This is our livelihood or something.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's kind of an interesting way to turn people away.
I know. I understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, I want to share what we have. And I want it's all over my website. If they want to steal it, they can go on my website and take it. So I don't think anybody taking a picture of it and posting it to their Instagram story is going to hurt my business. I hope that it helps when they
if you ask them to tag, of course.
So we try to ask people to do that, and people are usually really good about it. And
they're just trying to have the funny joke or have something funny.
Right, exactly.
As you look at like 5 years from now, what are you doing?
I'm hoping to. Some people ask if I want to sell the business, if I want to, what's my end goal. I don't really have an end goal. I know you're supposed to have a get-out strategy when you start a business. I don't really have my get-out strategy. I really love what I do. I love creating. And I also feel like even though I started in 2013, being that this is the first time I've been doing it full-time just 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm really just starting
and energized.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is. It's a new energy into the business. So I'm hoping to really be bigger and better. I'd like to go to like the Atlanta market and start introducing our product to other people. NSS, which is the National Stationery Show in New York, that happens in May every year. I would have loved to have attended this year, but being that I had just left my job end of March, I just wasn't ready with inventory. So that's something that we have in our planned for next year. We've really only done shows in Minnesota, and I'd like to start expanding that. We're looking at a show in Chicago in December, and I'd like to start expanding further, just to start reaching out to other people in other areas. So we've started reaching out to some other states and other locations, but I'd like to start expanding that further. We had our first connection with Canada. Someone in Canada reached out.
That's cool.
We're international. How awesome is that?
And there's all kinds of weird Canada things
you
can do.
So many weird Canadian
and different
things.
holidays.
Yes,
and
I know. I started looking into that and researching. I'm like, gosh, there's got to be more Canadian stuff. And
my brother-in-law
way
lives
more.
in Canada,
Okay.
and while it's so close, it is so far and just so different. Yeah,
I know it is. It's different.
Ask
but
Target.
I'm excited about it. Yes, exactly. Oh, poor Target.
All right, Angie, I really appreciate you being with us today. It is
you
Muddy
so
Mouth
much.
Cards. You can find her on our events page at muddymouthcards.com. They have the retailers there, the events, and you can also shop her cards right there. So they're very funny, and you're very clever. Thank you for sharing your time with
Stephanie.
us.
Wrap me in bacon, wrap him in bacon, and pour bacon crumbles on my head. Pour bacon crumbles on his head. Now that I think of it, I'll just go to Little Caesars. So go to Little Caesars. Get a bacon wrap deep dish pizza instead. Get a bacon wrap deep dish pizza instead.
Get Little Caesars large, hot and ready bacon wrap deep dish pepperoni and bacon pizza wrapped in over 3.5 feet of bacon for just $12 at participating locations plus tax.
Pizza.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. An F-16 pilot having hydraulic problems with his aircraft managed to parachute to safety as the plane smashed into a warehouse east of Los Angeles. Fire Captain Fernando Herrera.
That pilot landed in the March Air Force Base area, in the base itself.
Amazingly, there were no serious injuries after the plane hit the building. Alabama executed a man last night for his role in killing 4 people after an argument over a pickup truck. Tennessee executed a man who killed his wife. Reporters couldn't see the execution, but AP correspondent Travis Lawler says
we could hear sounds, including a singing, that Mr. Johnson's attorney says was him singing a hymn.
Answering a reporter's question, President Trump said he hopes the U.S. is not on a path to war with Iran. Mr. Trump has dismissed suggestions that any of his advisors are trying to push him into a conflict. I'm Rita Foley.